Okay, so part 3, config, 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 and then subtitle, it all starts with config. So one of the reasons that DAQ is so powerful is because it can be configured in a very, very flexible manner. This is a double-edged sword, of course, because that's also what I think makes DAQ quite confusing. So we start from where we ended at the end of part 2, which is with a local site folder. And with a test run of our faux device where we ran, ping, mmap, and brute, and nothing else at all. We've got PDF, got Markdown, and we have a baseline configuration. That's it. If that's all that could do, then it would be kind of useless. So we're just going to have a look at what this test site thing is here. So in the test site, you will see 3 folders, subfolders. So you've got device types, you've got devices, and you've got Mac headers. And this is what your local site folder down here could look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a look at this alltest.conf, and I'm going to have a look at this systemmulti.conf here. And then also I'm going to have a look at testorgs.sh. Put that there. Okay. So this is the system.conf that DAQ provides for you if you don't provide it with any sort of configuration. And it kind of tells you up here to specify a real USB up to modify the inf names entry with the appropriate interface names. Start commands like become stout. And then what you can also do is specify more than one faux device. So all this does is we have one interface name, and that's the faux device. We have a startup command, which does some stuff, and we have a site description. The systemmulti.conf does a few more things. So we're still using the MISC system.conf as a base, but now we're adding 2 more faux devices. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this into our system.conf. I'm just going to see what happens. So let's just close all that. Right, so now we have a base configuration file for DAQ, another site description, which is copy and pasted it. Multi-device configuration. Sec port 4 tells it in it, and we'll go into what that is kind of later. Right, so right now, what we're going to do is rerun DAQ with the command run -s. And we'll just kind of see what happens. Alright, so that's running. So what should happen now is that DAQ should create 2 more faux devices. So right now we can see if we do just a docker ps command, it's quite a good way to monitor DAQ while it's running. Kind of do a watch command as well on Ubuntu, another one on Debian generally. See what's going on. So the watch command just does the same command every however many seconds. I've just put as 0.5. So we can see that right now some tests are running. We've got DAQ faux 3, DAQ faux 2, and DAQ faux 1. We also have DAQ networking up, and we've also got Faucet doing its thing. There we go. We've got some other things up here. So that's all running along quite smoothly. Yeah, everything's kind of happy. And of course this run will take a bit longer because before we just had one target port to initialize, we have port 1, and now we have ports 1, 2, and 3 on our virtual switch inside our host machine. Yeah, so see now we're just waiting for DHCP. So one of the first sanity checks that DAQ does is to check that DHCP is enabled on a device. DHCP, just to quickly run over what that is. If DHCP is enabled on a device, it means it's willing to accept an IP address from the network it's on. This is in stark contrast to a lot of how, well, to how a lot of current building devices work and kind of older IP connected devices, in that they don't have DHCP turned on or even implemented. So you must define a static IP on the device before you even plug it in, which is not very useful on a highly dynamic network. Okay, so we kind of see that port 2 is kind of working. Everything's still going on. So when the tests kind of come up, you'll see like a Docker container with the name of the test as well. So what that means is that a faux container, a dummy device in DAQ, is a Docker container. Each test itself is a Docker container, and each of the network interfaces, well, loosely, each of the network trickery boxes that DAQ uses is also inside a Docker container, and that's another of DAQ's superpowers. That I didn't need to install any dependencies on my machine apart from Open vSwitch, Mininet, and Faucet, and a couple of Python things in a virtual environment as well, because everything else runs within Docker. Okay, so port 3 test running. That's all good. See here that we're doing some report generation. Yes, there we go. Done with run, exit 0. So the only difference between our previous configuration and this configuration was we had two extra faux devices called faux1, faux2, and faux3, and DAQ has thankfully just shut all of our Docker containers down. So let's just get rid of that. Just to check. Yep, it's all good. Yep, so if we have a look in the inst folder now, well, let's have a look in the local folder first. Done a refresh. We can now see that we have many more devices that have been tested. But just from our run, what we have is a report from MAC address 9A.01, 9A.02, and 9A.03. And I believe all of these should be the exact same report because we haven't configured the faux device to be anything different. So this is kind of boring, and I apologize. But it illustrates a point. That you can run the exact same tests on 3 devices that are the exact same thing, and you will get the exact same result. And that's what you want in the real world as well. So yeah, that's kind of part 1 of extended configuration. Now, if we go back into test.orgs.sh, so don't worry too much about what this is yet. But we are basically just going to copy and paste this. And what this does is all I need. What we're doing, yeah, so small.conf. So this is a file that we can use to test DAQ later on, which will go off on a large tangent later on in a different video. But at the moment, I just know that misc/systemall.conf has the right configuration to set up a fully configurable faux device system. So I'm going to do that, all tests. There we go. And I'm going to copy and paste this as well, which is an extra bit of configuration for each of our faux devices. And that's it. So let's see. Yep, source, message.conf, all device, all test configuration, interface names, 1, 2, 3, startup multi, host tests, all. Yeah. Okay. So let's just compare that to what we were doing before. Open that to the side. So basically all we had before, this was the same as before, default configuration, run mode, local, which can have a very, very basic configuration, and the site path is local site. And yeah, so now we have 3 faux devices. So the first run we had 1, second run we had 3, but now we have defined some options down here. And it's at this point I want to go into the first problem with just copy and pasting things randomly. So you can see that we have sourced misc system.conf. So let's once again just open that up. And down here, we can see that our site path is local/site. So it's local/site. So I've copied loads of stuff from the test file just then, and it's changed the site path to inst/test site. This is not a great idea. So what we're going to do is just delete that, and that will keep our local configuration in our local folder. Okay, so we've got a test config of long wait, and another thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to reduce the time DAQ takes to scan the network. Because we're running on a local network, the monitor scan kind of be okay if it's a shorter length, and it'll make our tests run a little bit faster. Okay, so let's do that and see what happens. So, new configuration, 3 phone devices. Let's see what goes on. Okay, and let's monitor our containers again. So we see we've got 3 phones. Got a faucet starting up. Still starting. 6 seconds ago. Yeah. Yeah. Lovely. Right. Cool. So what we just did there was to set the monitor scan sec for 8 seconds. Before DAQ starts, it scans the network for however many seconds you tell it to, in this case 8, and it'll use the resultant packet capture, the PCAP, to, well, some tests that DAQ runs use that packet capture to verify things are happening correctly. Okay, so that's all going along quite nicely. Okay, so while running that, so first part of the videos is just going to be to talk about different faux device configurations, mainly because you can run all of this faux stuff on your laptop without any external stuff, and it's a really good way to get your head around configuring DAQ and what different things do. So if we just have a look at these, then as I was saying, the MISC folder is kind of a great place for examples of how stuff works. So what I just did there was I had a look at the system.conf for the test site, which was from one of the tests, and I copied and pasted it, and that's how we got here. That's how we got these startup faux options, stuff like that. Another thing in here is an example of a report template. And this is a report template that's used, so every time a test runs, each test has a device associated with it. So all of the information that comes from your configuration will be injected into this device identification table and this test roles table here. And if I just go into MAC address, let's choose 01 there, look at the module config, then I can see that this is one of the good ways to set the configuration of a particular device. Okay, so there's one of them. And then if we look in the, so where am I now? I'm in faucets SDM, and I'm in qualification. And yeah, so these are other configuration files which you can use. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a look at, oh, yeah. Yeah, so things are happening here, which is good. So how are we doing? Aha. Oh no, that's all good. Look at that. We've got some errors. I wonder what's happening here. So this may happen to you, of course. And that's one of the reasons for this, the format of this video series, because things have happened, and hopefully DAQ won't hang, so we can see what's going on. But generally, we were running a switch test, and nothing kind of worked. And I wonder why is. Go. Should have a look. So what MAC address was that for? So this is something that might happen in the course of your DAQ live. So we're running a test on the device with MAC address 3C ending OA. So we'll have a look in there. Have a look at module config. And we can see that this module.config has a load of stuff. If you recall before, the tests we run were I think were like brute, and they were mmap, and they were ping, and we've told DAQ to enable all sorts of other tests, but we haven't built any of these tests, which is another problem with just copy and pasting things. So be careful of that one as well. So this host tests configuration thing right here, if we just have a look at alltest.conf, then the baseline configuration that we included before was just the host tests, which is the pass, fail, ping, DHCP, all that stuff. But then we include all these modules as well. So let's just see what DAQ does. It's still kind of running. Yeah, maybe it'll hang. Okay. Tell you what, let's just cancel this. But another little thing that I wanted to cover in what will become one of the many when DAQ goes wrong moments of this series, or rather when I do things wrong to DAQ, is that if you Control C DAQ, then loads of Docker containers will still be running. When you rerun DAQ, hopefully it should kill all the old ones, but sometimes things get a little bit out of sync. So I've got a little command which is in my bash rc, and it's just a quick thing to kill all of the running Docker containers, and it's this. So it's I call it cad kill all Docker things, and it's sudo docker kill, and it just gets all of the IDs of the running Docker containers. So if I just copy and paste this, then all these Docker containers that are running now, if I just do that, then all of those will die, and that is handy because we can ensure that there's a fresh run next time DAQ starts. So yeah, what we're going to do, we're just going to do a command build again. And what the command build script does is it picks up what we tell DAQ to build based on this host test thing here. So once again, if we have a look at MISC all tests, we want to build the host tests. So look at that, MISC host tests. And this is what we had before. We want to build Docker, pass, fail, all this. Also include the subset pentest build conf, which is not included again here. So yeah, just have a look out, watch out for that one as well. We're just going to build that again, and auto magically it'll build really quickly because I'm going to pause this and come back in a bit. Okay, so welcome back to endless video feedback, and hooray, we've built everything successfully. So based on our configuration here, so we've gone into subset switches build.conf, subset switches build.conf, we've added the switch test, and then if we go into subset cloud build.conf, then we have built this, added the UDMI test, and we can see that that's what DAQ's telling us happened. So the switch test, where's that one? We've built that, and the UDMI test has built that, and all these others as well. So now, if we first of all make sure there's no Docker things running, which there aren't, if we command run -s again, okay, fo1, fo2, fo3, like faucet started, yeah, that's all good. So yeah, just while that is running, it's just so we've been through the test site. Yeah, so we've got a device types folder, got a devices folder, got access folder, cloud IoT config, go over that in a second, and module config.json. Yeah, So if we have a look at how that maps, how are we doing? Yep, running. How that maps to our local folder here, kind of haven't got any of that, right? We've got system.conf, and we're using, what we're using? We're using, once again, MISC. Ooh, dear. Okay. We're using MISC system.conf, and that is using a base configuration of MISC module config.json. So if we have a look at that, then we can see that that's why our previous run didn't work, because we got all of these tests enabled. Okay, so if we have a look back at our test site, module config.json, test site, that work? Yeah. Where are we at? MISC test site, module config.json. Then that's what we've got enabled here as well. Okay. Yep, that's what we've got. So first of all, we have an example device module config.json. So each device can have a configuration, and this is what this will look like. So we have various options for configuring a device datasheets URL, various options for a device description, device image, some device info. So if again we'll take the example of a building, and you've got to install 1,000 devices to tell them apart, you're going to need a globally unique identifier. So it's globally unique across all your sites and indeed across the globe. We're going to have a firmware version, we're going to have a type, maybe a serial number, a name, model, make, host name, and GUID. So we've also got a key for the device manuals URL and the device type, and then we have a little section here which enables various modules. So we have modules, and within modules we have tests. So what this is doing is it's enabling every module, apart from the brute module. Down here we have the configuration for port access. So servers, TCP ports, so port 20, we're allowing that, and we're giving a reason. We're not allowing it, sorry, false, and we're giving a reason. What are we allowing? We're allowing port 443. So port 443 regularly used for secure web services. Normally secured with a SSL certificate or a TLS certificate, whatever you want to call it. We're allowing that. So it looks like in this configuration, that's the only thing we're allowing apart from port 22, which is normally used for SSHing in. And then UDP-wise, what we're allowing is UDP port 123. And that's usually used for, let's figure out what time it is based on NTP. That's still going. We should go back. Right here, we have a configuration for a device type, which is vaguely the same. So each device can have a type, and you can configure. So if you have a device of type, I don't know, lighting controller or something, then you can lock down the configuration for every device with that type with a separate configuration file. A minimal device thing is kind of absolutely nothing. It just gives you the device info, which allows you to identify the device, and a type and a temp number. And if you use this minimal device config, then it will pick up whatever the base configuration is, which will enable certain modules and give some information on the running version of DAQ. Port template, covered that briefly before. Then there's a system module config.json. So there's many different layers of configuration. And those are various examples for all those. So the system module configuration will again include a little area to enable or disable various modules. Again, within modules, there are tests. There will be the process area. So normally in a kind of testing workflow like this, you'll have an operator who will do something. So operator could be Jason in this instance, or it could be your own name. An approver could be basically your boss. I don't know. So that's just included, kind of for legacy reasons, I suppose. And then down here is a very large section where you can configure how to group your test results. So if we look at an example report again, so we go in here. Are there any? Yeah. So if you go into a report, there we go. This is how we configure this area here. So there's a category other, and we've given all the tests in this a category of other and an expectation of other. Notes come from test results. These are dynamic based on what happened in the test. I jumped a bit there, haven't we? Yep. And yeah, we see the results here. So here we can see that we select each test based on its test name. We can give it a category, we can give it a requirement, and we can give it an expected requirement. And this configuration here, this basically affects the overall pass or fail of your device. So we can see here, just in the case of these two tests, we've given the base switch ping and the base target ping a category of connection. So connection would appear in these categories over here. We require it to pass, and it's expected required pass. Okay, so if any of these tests fail, so for example, if base.switch.ping fails, then the overall result, overall device will be a fail, and that's the control that you have over the report output. So how are we doing here? Is this okay? Yeah, got a test report. Test stuff. Yep, still running. Okay, and we can see that even as it's running, we given that inst, in my estimations anyway, is a kind of like a structured log of configuration and well, it's a structured log. So each run has a structured configuration, yes, and it has some reports, but it also has various log files of what each test is doing. So before, I don't think we had any fails, but you can see that in the inst folder there will be some fail directories that appear. So and in the fail directories are kind of what's happening here. So maybe yeah. So you can kind of see for really quite intense debugging information, if you're interested in this sort of stuff, exactly kind of what happened. So you see the NXST flow. You can see, what's going on here. So this is OpenFlow stuff. Yeah. So if you are interested in the bare bones operation of what OpenFlow is doing, then you'll find those. Here. For example, run port 1, we already have a load of results. That's finished. So you can see that we've run a load of extra tests and they've all run successfully. And here DAQ has exit with 1. I'll go why that's. I'll cover why that's happened in a second. But you can see that from the Mac AUI test, for example, this is the log, and that's why it's failed. Couldn't find the manufacturer. The brute tests, you can see kind of what it's done there, and there's nothing in there which tells us much. The activated log of the backnet test tells us kind of. So this is the log from the code that's running within each test. Yeah. Okay. So let's have a look at the report from that run. So if we remember back, our configuration here was to create 3 faux devices and configure them thusly. We're running all the tests and we're scanning the network for 8 seconds, etc., etc., etc. So let's have a look at some of these reports, and we'll try and lead back from the configuration back to what's actually happened. So my IDE VS Code tells me what kind of type these files are, but we've got some markdown reports, and as ever, we have some PDF reports. So let's just pick a random one and see what's going on. Hello. I want to make you smaller. There we go. So we can see that. So as I was just saying there, in the system module config, this isn't the config we're running now. We're running the kind of basic one. So none of the tests are grouped in any sort of category. They're all just based in category of other. Our overall device result is a pass, even though we've got loads of fails, right? And that the device result is a pass because we haven't set up what tests we want to pass or fail, indeed, to make this report make sense. So if you don't set any tests with the requirement to pass, or requirement to fail, or requirement for info, or requirement to skip, then you'll always get a pass. So that's something to watch out for. So now we can see the report is a lot longer, and we've got 9 pages now. We've got a switch test, and we can kind of see that again. We've got a local IP not configured. MAC AUI has passed, and then we've got some backnet tests down here. We can see why this test has been skipped straight away. Just a note on the notes column of this table. So just take the example of that backnet test right there. Yeah, okay. So protocol.backnet.pick. Again, it doesn't matter what this test does right now, because I'll go through the currently included tests later on. But we see backnet device is not found. The pics.csv is not found in device types or directory. And the notes, the text that you'll find in the notes column of each row of this table, is basically just what you will find on the end of each test result. So the kind of format of results within the log section of the report is a capital result as a space. Then there is the result of the test, which is at the moment either pass, fail, info, or skip. Then we have the name of the test, and then we have kind of a very short kind of summary of what the test did. So in this case, this particular test was skipped because the backnet device is not found, and that text there that's currently highlighted is what you will find in this column here. So just a bit of clarity about what that means. Okay, so yeah, so kind of gone through what's going on in qualification, and yeah, I kind of covered this briefly before, but for normal operation, you don't want to be working in MISC test site. It's kind of tempting to kind of make your, so for example, what you could do in here is system.conf, and in your, well, in fact, let's just go back to MISC system.conf to really show this. So if you were to, so at the top of our local system.conf, we are sourcing MISC system.conf, which is using this configuration file as a base. Any of these configuration options that is included in your local system.conf will overwrite the one that came before it. So if I were to put here another base.conf, then that would be the exact same thing. If I were to do the same thing for the site path right here, then I could very easily change this to MISC and then test site. That can lead to some weird side effects. So if you're just playing around with DAQ as we're doing at the moment, and you want to copy what's in the MISC test site, try to copy what's in the test site folder into the local folder. Don't just use the test site as your working site. So just a caveat on that one there. So yeah, local site, local/site is a good place to start. So as I was saying earlier, what you could do is have another folder here called site2 or something like that, which means that kind of on the fly, if you want to edit this file, so between runs you can kind of edit this site path, right? So if I run into local site2, then so in here now all we have is a load of kind of configuration options here. And once again, the basic configuration that we're using is misc module config.json. But if I were to change my base configuration to a module config. So I'm just going to cut this. I'm going to put this in here. Paste that in there. So if I want to change my base conf to local site 2 / module config, and in this module configuration right here, yeah, so this is different. So this is only enabling the brute pass switch. Well, it's enabling brute and it's disabling pass and it's disabling the switch test. And it's also enabling the back and X test. But what I'm going to do here is just change some of these keys. So I'm going to put approver, I don't know, Sergey Brin, why not? And I'm going to put the operator as Larry Page, why not? And I'm going to keep these here. So now what we've done is we have set the site path to local site 2, and we've set the base configuration to local / site 2 / module config. The lights just went off in the room, just turn them back on. So now, if we run DAQ once again, then let's just first check some Docker containers. That's cool. Type in my old password. Aha! So, what's happened here? So this is what I was saying before about the build hash. So DAQ has noticed that I've changed something in MISC test site module config. Have I though? I didn't mean to. Test site module config. Yeah, I probably have. But if we have a look in the Git thing right here, see, I've deleted it. It's not right, is it? Let's just restore that one. Yeah, I don't remember doing that, but there we are. Things happen. So if I run DAQ again, should work. So it's kind of, yeah, it's not a hash that's based on time, it's just based on what files are there. So if you delete something accidentally, you can just restore it, and then DAQ will once again run. So what we can see here is that I've changed that thing there, so my config now is being loaded from local site 2 module config, and my site path is local site 2. So when DAQ runs again, it will put in all of the results into this site2 folder, and these here will remain unchanged. And what that kind of means is if you've got, thinking of the site as even a collection of devices that you're testing in a lab setting, so I could call this local, I don't know, lighting devices, and I could do local HVAC devices as well. And it means you can keep your test results and your reports separate. So here the MAC addresses are going to be the same. Okay, so we're going to have this 35C1 with a B, and we're going to have 9A01. What this actually is a log of all of the MAC addresses, or rather all the devices that have been connected within this site configuration. And this down here in local site_2 is a log of all of the devices that have ever been connected to this site configuration. Which means that, if we move on to our next point here, the local folder can, and kind of should, be saved and shared. So let's say that you are in a laboratory setting, let's say, so you're working in your lab, and you've tested 3 devices. Or you need to send to someone else who cares about the the qualification results of those devices. So you just need to send this local, that folder there, because you can see this device here with the configuration of this has the result of this. And so site there could be some lighting devices, and site 2 could be some heating devices, HVAC devices. And then you would just send the other parties that are interested in these separate results this folder. So you could email that, or zip it up, or put it in some source control. And if you kind of version control these site folders here, then you have a log of everything that's happened. Everything that's happened in your site, be that in a live building, a production environment, inverted commas, or just in your lab. So we've already gone over system.conf and how you can change that and bend the configuration to your will. And then local tests.conf. So yeah, let's just kind of wait until DAQ does something else so we can get some reports in here. Okay, right, so let's just stop that. Let's kill you. Let's do that, and let's do our kill docker commands just to clean everything. There we go. So yeah, so now you can see just by way of comparison. So we have the same MAC address here, so 3c.0a. Let's have a look at the device port here. We can see that the time. Is there a timestamp on this one? I think there is. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So fundamentally, there is not a timestamp on this one right here. But if we look in here, then there isn't a timestamp on this one either. Unfortunate. But we can see that. So let's just close that again. So we can see that in our local site folder, we've run this many tests, which is a lot of tests. And in our site2 folder, so for the same MAC address, different configuration, we have run fewer tests. So that's just kind of a thing to show that different sites can be configured differently to give different results. Mainly because this one we've got an overall device result of a pass. This one we've got an overall device result of a fail. Same device, different configuration. Okay, so let's go over a local tests.conf file. So there is runtime configuration, which is kind of what we've been doing up until now through our. Let's just get rid of that. Let's just cut that. It's because I cut it. Let's just copy. Fair enough. So another thing that can happen with DAQ is that permissions can go slightly awry. So when DAQ runs, it runs with root privileges. So when we ran DAQ, all those minutes ago, it created our local site folder for us. We ourselves created site2. So I've just tried to, in my VS Code, I've tried to copy module config into local site, and it said, access denied. And that is because local site is owned by root. So I have a command called own all. That worked. I have a command in my bash RC again called own all, which is basically sudo chown recursively basically. So I'm just going to run that, which is going to change all the permissions of the current folder I'm in downwards, so I own them. So that can happen as well. So just watch out for that one. If you copy that and paste that one there, then we have the same configuration that we had before. Okay, so this host test thing here is currently it's currently referencing this one here. We can specify any file we want to configure what tests we want to build. So in DAQ, a file that's referenced by this hosts test configuration option here is basically what tests we want to build. So I'm just going to overwrite that, and I'm going to make a little file in local site called local tests.conf, and I'm going to copy paste that one, put that one in there, and I'm going to remove everything, and I'm going to remove pass, I'm going to remove fail, and I'm going to remove ping. Right, so what this is now doing, so the host tests, so what we want to reference now, just going to change this down here and do a little comment that says this is local config. Ta-da! Right, there we go. So we are going to now do local site, and then what have I called it? I called it local test, so we're not. Yes. Okay. So now, if we do a command build, oh, I'm in the wrong place. Yep. If I do a command build, then you can see here that it started to do. It's activated the env again for the Python. Loading a config from localsystem.conf into inst.system.conf, which is kind of the runtime structured log of configuration and logs of what's happening. And we're now including the tests from local site local tests, which includes MISC host tests, build files from Docker, the pen test, the switches, and the cloud. But you'll see here that because I've added in those little commands to remove pass and remove fail and remove ping, it won't build them anymore. And this is where things can start to get a little bit out of sync, because if we go back into our image folder here, we can still see that we have a built image for test pass. So even though I've removed it, I've still got an old image that we built, an old image for a container that we built before. And I also removed fail, but still we have a built thing for fail. And we removed ping, but still we have a container, presumably somewhere, for ping. Oh, it must do. There we go. Let's just have a look. Yeah, there we go. So I built it 2 hours ago. That's all fine. Okay, but basically, if you're running DAQ from scratch and you want to build certain tests, because the build step, as we've seen, takes quite a long time. So if you don't want to build all the tests, you can use a file like this to specify which ones you want to build. Okay. So if we now, so that is the local test thing. So that's how to remove tests from the build, and adding and removing tests from a run. Right. So now we need to be fairly careful, because we have remove pass, remove fail, remove ping, and we've only got tests that are contributed from the modules of switches and cloud. And if we have a look, we're using the base configuration of local site module config. So let's just be super careful about this and open these side by side so we can see. Okay, so we want to include subset switches, we want to include the cloud. So basically we're now going to re-enable the switch test, and using the system config as a base, we're just going to see what happens if we enable tests that definitely aren't there. Right. So this is a full, so I'm just referencing the system module config, which is at the moment just basically turns on all of the modules for all of our tests. And we've only included the switches tests and the cloud tests. Now the switches module is enabled like this. So let's turn off this POE one, and let's turn off the whole thing as well. And let's just keep everything else apart from BACnet enabled. Right, and let's just kind of see what happens. So just a command run -s again. How are we doing? You know what? I'm just going to have a little alias for that. And this is something that I'd encourage you guys to do as well, because there are a lot of commands for DAQ that you'll end up kind of repeating, and let's just call this WD. Does that already exist? We do? No? Cool. And let's just, don't want to do that. Let's just do this. So I've got another command up here just to source this again, so we can get it instantly. Sweet, let's just watch Docker. Sweet. And let's run it. Okay. Let's just go over that again. So we have we've built our tests based on this build configuration right here. We've removed pass, we removed fail, we removed ping. And we've included all the tests that are included within the switches and the cloud kind of modules. And we have, where was it? There we are. So now we're looking again at local site module config, which is what we are using as our base configuration. But what we're doing here is we're kind of enabling things that haven't been included within the build. So let's just kind of see what takes place. Yeah. With this, I just wanted to illustrate the kind of the twisty-turny nature of configuration in DAQ, because I can't imagine things will go how I expect. Because we can see here that we've got host 3, which is host 3 up there. It's running with enable test, Mudgy, mmap, and discover. So, but here we've enabled BACnet true, and we have there, and we have discover enabled true as well. But again, if we look at some of our images over here, then we'll see that we still have a load of these tests in our just kind of floating around. So even though we've rebuilt, we still haven't got rid of our old containers. Okay, let's just wait for that to finish. Back in here again. Just while we're doing that, there is another command which is quite useful if you're interested in this sort of thing, to find out. Oh, what's wrong? To find out the running IP addresses of your Docker containers. So I call this one DAQ IP. So what that does is if we do DAQ IP, it'll just show you the IP addresses within the context of the Docker daemon, what exactly is going on, and kind of do that a few times. So that means if we ping GW3 right here, then we'll get a response. And this is quite useful if you want to debug network things and stuff like that. So just another kind of bonus tip right there. Okay, so our run has finished based on that configuration we just had there. If we have a look in the ints folder, once again, we have a look at a report. So there we go. Sweet. So let's just focus on this one. So once again, we will have a look at our module config, and we've enabled BACnet, we've enabled MacAUI, we've enabled Mudgy, we've enabled mmap, we've disabled switch, we've enabled TLS, we've enabled discover, and we've enabled the password modules. But in our local tests, we've only built the host tests, which just to remind ourselves and myself of those again, which is build Docker, which is all the host tests, which is add password, and we're including the pen tests. So, but only these tests have run. So only the tests, so security of the firmware and security ports mmap, those are included within the pen tests, but we haven't run any switch tests. So this is good, because we told DAQ not to run any switch tests. So this is decent. And we told it not to run the pass or the fail or the ping or the BACnet. And from here, yeah, we haven't got the ping or BACnet. So this is good. Okay, but still, our overall device result is a fail. I'm sorry. And that's because we've set up a recommended fail on one test. So let's have a look at what that is there. Where would that be? Results, pass, fail, skip. Sorry. So one test that we were recommended to pass, which I presume is security ports mmap, yeah, has failed. So yeah, so okay, so that actually worked better than I expected. Yeah, so we've configured the build, we rebuilt stuff, and then we enabled and we enabled and disabled some modules in our thing, and just based on this device here, that's what's run. And you can configure it in all sorts of lovely ways. And I wonder, let's just have a look at the PDF because it's slightly easier to read. Yeah, okay. So right now, I'm just wondering why our operator keys didn't go into the report because they're there. But anyway, that's all good. That's kind of what we expected to happen. Okay, so that was moving test from the build and moving from the run at the same time, and we got what we expected.